The sun was dipping low, casting a warm golden glow over the quiet suburban street where Sarah pushed her cart of groceries toward her old, beat-up sedan. Her arms ached from a long shift at the diner, her feet throbbed in her worn-out sneakers, and her mind was already racing with the evening's to-do list. Cook dinner, help her son Tommy with his math homework, and maybe, just maybe, catch a moment to breathe. At 32, Sarah had learned to juggle life's demands as a single mom, but some days, like today, the weight of it all felt heavier than usual. She popped the trunk, heaving bags of groceries into it, when a sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway next door. The house belonged to the Wilsons, a family so wealthy they seemed to live in a different world. Sarah had seen their sprawling mansion countless times, its manicured lawn and towering columns a stark contrast to her modest rental, but she rarely crossed paths with them. She kept her head down, focused on her own life, her own struggles. "Hey, need a hand?" A voice called out, startling her. She turned to see a young man, probably in his mid-20s, stepping out of the SUV. He was tall, with neatly tousled brown hair and a friendly smile that caught her off guard. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and jeans that looked more expensive than her monthly rent, he didn't fit the image of someone who'd offered to help with groceries. "Oh, no, I'm good, thanks," Sarah said quickly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She wasn't used to strangers being kind for no reason. "I insist," he said, already reaching for a bag. "I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Wilson. I think we're neighbors, sort of." Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Sarah, and, thanks." She watched as he effortlessly lifted the heaviest bags, his ease making her feel a mix of gratitude and self-consciousness. She wasn't used to help, especially not from someone like him, someone who probably never worried about stretching a paycheck to cover rent and school supplies. As they loaded the last bag, Ethan glanced at her car, then back at her. "Long day?" he asked, his tone light but curious. "You could say that," Sarah replied with a small laugh, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Just the usual, work, groceries, mom stuff." He nodded, leaning casually against her car. "You know, I was just about to make some coffee. Want to join me? I mean, if you've got a minute." Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Coffee, with the millionaire's son. She glanced at her car, then at the tiny house where Tommy was waiting, probably glued to his video games. I should get home. My son's waiting. Just one coffee," Ethan said, his smile disarming. "I promise I'm not as boring as this neighborhood makes me look." She laughed despite herself, the sound surprising her. "Okay, fine, one coffee, but only because you carried the heavy bags." Inside the Wilson mansion, Sarah felt like she'd stepped into a magazine. Marble floors gleamed under a massive chandelier, and the air smelled faintly of lavender. Ethan led her to a cozy kitchen, surprisingly normal compared to the rest of the house, and started brewing coffee. As the machine hummed, he asked about her day, her life, and for reasons she couldn't quite explain, Sarah found herself talking. She told him about the diner, about Tommy's obsession with soccer, about how she'd been saving for years to maybe one day afford a better place. Ethan listened, really listened, his green eyes steady and kind. In return, he shared bits of his own life. He'd just moved back from New York, where he'd been working in finance, trying to carve his own path away from his father's shadow. "It's not as glamorous as it sounds," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Everyone expects me to be this perfect heir, but half the time, I'm just figuring things out like everyone else." Sarah raised an eyebrow, sipping her coffee. "Figuring things out with a safety net the size of a small country." He laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Fair point, but money doesn't solve everything. It's lonely, sometimes." She wasn't sure what to make of that. Lonely, with all this, but there was something in his voice, a quiet sincerity, that made her believe him. One coffee turned into two, and before she knew it, an hour had passed. Sarah glanced at her phone, startled. "Oh, wow, I need to get back. Tommy's probably wondering where I am." Ethan walked her to the door, pausing on the porch. "Hey, Sarah, this was nice. Maybe we could do it again sometime." She smiled, unsure but oddly hopeful. "Maybe. Thanks for the coffee." Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Ethan fell into an unexpected rhythm. He'd show up when she was unloading groceries or fixing a flat tire, offering help and conversation. Sometimes, she'd invite him in for a quick coffee at her place, where Tommy would pepper him with questions about his fancy car or his trips abroad. Ethan never seemed to mind. He'd bring Tommy a soccer ball one day, a book about space the next, and Sarah couldn't help but notice how her son lit up around him, but doubts gnawed at her. Ethan was kind, funny, and disarmingly down to earth, but he was also a Wilson. His world was private jets and boardrooms, hers was late shifts and budgeting for school lunches. What was he doing, spending time with her? Was it pity, curiosity? She didn't dare let herself hope for more. One evening, as autumn leaves blanketed the street, Ethan knocked on her door. Tommy was at a sleepover, and Sarah was alone, folding laundry on the couch. "I was thinking," Ethan said, leaning against the doorframe, "there's this festival downtown tomorrow. Food stalls, music, the works. Want to go? You and Tommy, I mean." Sarah hesitated, her hand stilling on a t-shirt. "Ethan, why are you doing this? Hanging out with us, I mean. You could be anywhere else." He looked at her, his expression softening. "Because I like you, Sarah. You're real. You don't pretend to be something you're not. And Tommy, he's awesome. You two make this place feel like home, more than that big house ever has." Her heart stuttered, but she shook her head. "Ethan, we're from different worlds. You know that, maybe," he said, stepping closer. "But I don't care about that. I care about you." The festival was a whirlwind of lights and laughter. Tommy darted between stalls, his face smeared with cotton candy, while Ethan and Sarah trailed behind, sharing bites of kettle corn. For the first time in years, Sarah felt light, like the weight of her worries had lifted, if only for a night. As they walked home under a starlit sky, Tommy asleep in Ethan's arms, Sarah glanced at him. "You're not what I expected," she admitted. "Good," he said with a grin. "Because you're not what I expected either." It wasn't a fairy tale. Sarah knew life wasn't that simple. There would be challenges, whispers from neighbors, raised eyebrows from his family, the realities of their different lives. But as Ethan set Tommy down in his bed and turned to her with that same warm smile, she thought maybe, just maybe, they could figure it out together. One coffee at a time,